The UFC went back to St. Louis for the first time in 6 years, and this card did not disappoint. We had the hometown hero win as an underdog. We had the biggest favorite on the entire card get finished late in the third round, and we had a very hyped heavyweight prospect lose. This was an objectively good card. It was a ton of fun. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks, and I'm going to break down every single fight that we just saw at UFC St. Louis. Before we talk about the fights, let's talk about the bets. I lost $27, and it sucks. The worst part about it is I made 140 last week. So if you zoom out a week and you compare 27 down plus 140, that's still up good money. But what ends up happening is I have no perspective. I see down and down is down. Meaning, if I lost $5,000 or $20, it is the same feeling. It is the same gut-wrenching feeling that has you looking at every single bet you placed, wondering what you should have placed and didn't, wondering why you placed certain bets. And those are the highs and lows of gambling. A unit for me is $100. I lost 0.27. I lost basically a quarter of a unit. But in my mind, it has been eating me up for the last few hours. In my mind, I lost hundreds of thousands of, it's crazy what that does to you. The obsession with being up money or minus money and not having the perspective of the long term is absolutely consuming. And that's what this is here for. This is here for perspective, because right before I was about to film this, I got this email from Josh. I did black out his last name. I'm sure I will have more information for you tomorrow, including the screenshots to go along with this message. You can see that came in at 9:39 p.m. Central Time. It is 10:22. Josh sent a note. He emailed us at info@wewantpicks.com. He said, 2 weeks in a row, I won the $3 DraftKings tournament. $1,200 last week, $2,600 this week, all with your help. If you need screenshots, please tell me where to send them. I replied, said 100% send those screenshots, and I will show you those hopefully for tomorrow's Mother's Day quick picks. But the perspective here was very helpful because I honestly was about to hit record and was like, man, I lost. It's $27, but it's still a loss. And that was driving me nuts. And then I got this message and it's like, you know what? There were some good nuggets of information. The tools, the insight, the information was still good. And maybe I shouldn't have placed the first round KO Robelis Despaigne bet for $25. I obviously should have avoided Mateusz Rebecki, but even with hindsight, that wasn't the worst bet in the world. Either way, let's go ahead and break down all these fights. I did lose $27 this week, but I made $140 last week, and that is absolutely something that I need to be better at, is zooming out, looking at things at a broader scope. I'm up money on the year. I've had a good year, but I lost $27, and it is a punch to the gut. We opened up the UFC St. Louis card with JJ Aldrich and Veronica Hardy, and I got to tell you, Veronica Hardy looked absolutely spectacular. We knew Veronica Hardy was a 5-time Taekwondo national champion. We knew that she was a Taekwondo black belt. We knew she had some striking chops. I did not know she was that fast. The speed here is what was crazy to me. JJ Aldrich would close the distance with these half-assed takedown attempts, and Veronica Hardy was just blasting strikes before JJ knew what was going on. Full speed, lightning fast hooks, uppercuts, insane speed. That was the most impressive part to me for Veronica Hardy. You're going to look at the stats, and in a few months from now, when these women fight again, we'll look at the stats, and we're going to see, oh, Veronica Hardy defended 97 takedowns, whatever the hell it was. But it wasn't that. JJ Aldrich wasn't shooting takedowns. She was working against the cage, leaning, trying to grab. She wasn't shooting clean takedowns. So that is going to be a very misleading statistic when we see that in the future. So hopefully we remember that JJ was just sort of loafing forward. Loafing is the perfect word. Just loafing forward, trying to get it against the cage and slow down the pace, because she absolutely could not keep up with Veronica Hardy. All of a sudden, Veronica Hardy, I believe this is 3 wins in a row, and she just continues to look better and better. The first win, wrestle heavy. The second win was a close fight against a massive woman, and this win, she was just on her game. Lightning fast strikes, kept JJ far enough away that she couldn't figure anything out. And when JJ was close, she got absolutely smashed up. Veronica Hardy looked unbelievable, and I am very curious to see what we have for her next and what the rest of her career is going to look like here, because all of a sudden, Veronica Hardy is somebody we need to be talking about in this division. Then, because of a canceled fight, We had the Charles Johnson, Jake Hadley fight very early on this card, and this was a good fight. It was not the fight of the night that we thought it could be, but it was a very good fight. Jake Hadley won the first round. I thought it was pretty clear Jake Hadley won the first round. He had Charles Johnson backing up, and I got to tell you, Charles Johnson does not fight well backing up. He just doesn't. When he's backing up, he's not throwing, he's doing the footwork, he's moving his hands a lot, but he's not actually throwing punches. And Jake Hadley was marching him down, walking forward, throwing big shots, had a takedown in the first round. And Jake Hadley looked good in that first round and won that first round. And I was worried for Jacob because Charles Johnson was Jacob's underdog lock of the week. But Charles Johnson's corner yelled at him. They read him the riot act in that corner. And he came out in the second round a completely different person. He was dictating the pace. He was moving forward. He was putting on what seemed like a striking clinic. He dropped Jake Hadley. I believe that's this image right here is after Jake was dropped. He dropped Jake Hadley, moved forward, looked very, very good. It was a close fight. I think the judges got it correct. 2 rounds to 1 for Charles Johnson. I do think that was correct, but it was close, and there were a lot of people being like, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be interesting. Where are we going to be? But it was a good fight. It was a straightforward fight for Charles Johnson, and it was nice to see him overcome some adversity. He objectively lost that first round and then came out, won the next 2. And Jake Hadley didn't fold. Jake Hadley didn't quit. He got dropped, but he continued the fight. He took Charles Johnson's back shortly after getting dropped. So Jake Hadley doesn't lose too much stock in this. If anything, Charles Johnson seems to be feeling himself and coming into his own here. And his ability to make adjustments between rounds was very impressive here. Either way, great win for Charles Johnson. 2 solid performances in a row. He called out a ranked opponent. I don't know if he's ready for a ranked opponent just yet, but Charles Johnson seeming to be putting things together. Boy, that was, is my tongue swollen? Putting things together. I sound like that dude from Big Bang Theory that works at the comic shop. Let's move on. This was an incredible fight. Trey Waters and Billy Goff was an incredible fight with a very interesting scorecard. First of all, Billy Goff's a dog, a straight up dog. This guy would come forward, and you do not want to fight in the pocket with Billy Goff. He will light you up in the pocket. This guy has nothing but heart and determination. You could tell by the third round, this guy was so exhausted, he could barely hold his arms up. Did he stop moving forward? No. Did he stop throwing punches? No. Billy Goff is a dog. And yes, he lost this fight, and I don't think any less of him whatsoever. I don't know how 2 other people beat him. His record is 9-3. I don't know how 2 other people beat him because this gentleman in this fight tonight was spectacular. He lost the fight, and he didn't have the skills to get truly inside the range. That's why he lost that fight. But the grit, the determination, he had power in those hands. He never stopped coming forward no matter what was in his way, and that was impressive. Now let's talk about Trey Waters. Trey Waters is giant. He's 6'5". He's long as hell. He's thick as hell. He has power, and now we know he has a chin. Billy Goff cracked that man more than once, very hard. And Trey just eats it. He just eats it, and he's still there for the fight. He eats it. He moves forward. He eats it, and he's there. I thought Billy Goff won pretty much every single inside the pocket exchange and was losing all the outside the pocket exchanges, which would make sense when you have somebody as long as Trey Waters. The decision was interesting, though. I felt like this was a split decision. 2 judges had it 30-27 for Trey Waters. And if I'm misremembering that, my bad. I'm 99% sure 2 judges had it 30-27 for Trey Waters. And I remember watching that being like, this looked closer than that. This did not look like Trey Waters easily won all 3 rounds. And I understand that's not how the scoring works, but every single judge, or 2 of the 3 judges, agreed that Trey Waters won 3 rounds. All 3 of them agreed that he won this fight. This felt like a closer fight than that. Let me know in the comments. I'm pretty sure if Billy Goff won, nobody would complain. I don't know who would complain if Billy Goff got a decision. That's how close I think this fight was. But either way, both of these guys should be proud of their performances. I believe they got a performance of the night bonus. I think they both did. I think this was the fight of the night as far as the Dana White bonus was concerned. So I am curious to see what they do for them next. Don't rush these guys, UFC. Don't rush them. Give them people that they can beat up, people that they can get into these dogs fights with, because what ends up happening is we've seen the UFC do that. We've seen them take these guys that are a ton of fun, One of them just won a fight, now 9-1, and they're going to give him somebody a little out of their reach and kill that hype train. The other one, 9-3, he's losing a fight. Don't throw him in there to lose 2 in a row, and now he's going to lose confidence and start fighting differently. These guys are great. Keep them apart. Give them people that they can beat, that they will be in a fun fight with, because I want to see these guys fight again. That was awesome. Then we had kind of a snoozer, a surprising snoozer though, meaning we had Tabatha Ricci taking on Tecia Torres, or now Tecia Pennington. Tecia Pennington looked good. For a woman that was gone for 2 years, for a woman that gave birth to a human being, she looked good. She was coming forward. She was landing a whole bunch of strikes. She was staying busy. What you're looking at in this picture is the only reason that Tabatha Ricci won this fight. The amount of cage control was crazy. Tabatha Ricci had Tecia Torres against the cage for the entire fight. If they were at distance, it was like strike, strike, strike. Tecia would jump in, land a little bit, and then all of a sudden, Tabatha Ricci would spin around, rush her against the cage, and hold her here. Tabatha Ricci, nuts strong, insanely strong. She was able to hold her against this fence for 90% of this fight because of her strength. It wasn't the superior technique. It wasn't like, oh, I'm controlling inside the position and blah. No, it was the straight up strength. She is so freaking strong. She had a takedown, and that was straight up strength. There was a few times where she had the legs completely split. I thought she was going to pick her up, and she wasn't able to, but the strength is there, and it's impressive how strong Tabatha Ricci is. It was also impressive how good Tecia Torres looked 2 years away after giving birth. This was a very close fight as well. This should have been a split decision. This should have been insanely close, because it was. I think the control time was clear, and you guys know me. A lot of you hate my guts for my control time narrative. I said Pantoja won 4 rounds in that fight last week because of the control time, because of the takedowns. And you guys jumped down my throat saying damage is the only thing that matters. He did nothing with it. Well, that's what we just had here. Tabatha Ricci with the control time. No damage. She didn't do anything with it. She literally held Tecia Torres against the cage. And I don't hear any outrage. And I'm good with it. I'm consistent. I'm not changing. I'm very consistent. I'm totally fine scoring fights for people that have control time and not necessarily a ton of damage. And that's because I've been watching this sport since day one. And that's what it was. Wrestling mattered. And now all of a sudden people don't give a shit. Wrestling doesn't matter. It means nothing. Either way, I think the correct outcome happened. I do think Tabatha Ricci won this fight. But it's also impressive how good Tecia Torres looked. Hopefully, she gets a quick turnaround. She got the cobweb 2 years away. She's back at it. She dusted it off. Let's get a quick-ish turnaround. Not a week, but let's get her back in there in a month or two so she can just get back into that swing of things, back into that rhythm, because she was one of the top women in the division for a very long time. 2 years away, this division has changed quite a bit, but I would love to see a little bit more Tecia Torres before she's starting to slow down and life gets a little too complicated. How good is Esteban Ribovics? And this is a genuine question, because this is Terrance McKinney, knocked out, slumped over, falling down after eating a couple of spectacular shots. But this is what Terrance McKinney looks like when he loses. When he wins, just reverse this image. Terrance McKinney finishes everybody or gets finished. There is no in between. So we don't know how good Esteban Ribovics is, because he certainly has a phenomenal record. He's now 13-1. He has 12 finishes of those 13 wins. But everybody finishes Terrance McKinney that beats him. I do think he's very good, though. I do think that he can be the real deal, because it wasn't just this one shot that got it done. Terrance McKinney surprisingly ate an incredible kick early on, and then Esteban stayed on him. Esteban continued to move forward. He had laser pinpoint accuracy with both his hands, his feet, and now his knees. And Esteban Ribovics might be the real deal. Terrance McKinney has always been an insanely talented guy, but a little bit chinny. I wish this fight went a little longer. It wasn't even the fastest fight on the card. This fight only lasted 37 seconds, and it wasn't even the fastest fight on the card. That's the kind of card that we had. I do think it went a little longer. I want to see how good Esteban is. Obviously, we've seen him in the UFC 2 times before this. Both of those were decisions. So we have seen him go to a decision twice in the octagon. This is actually his first finish. But I wanted to see this go a little bit longer because Terrance McKinney is dangerous, is fast, is all of those things. Either way, Esteban looks spectacular. Let's give him somebody a little more dangerous, a little more durable, and let's see what we get out of him. But his striking looked pinpoint perfect. And hopefully there's a pop filter on this microphone because I tripled up my P's there. And then we had Chase Hooper. The biggest holy shit moment of the night was not that Chase Hooper won. It was not that he won by questionable decision or submission. That was all fair play, right? If you told me Chase Hooper's going to win this fight by submission, I'm not going to argue with that. Who's going to argue with that? The big holy shit moment was what you're looking at on the left-hand side is Viacheslav Borshchev getting dropped by a Chase Hooper punch. And I'll pause. I'll let that sink in. Yes, everybody. Chase Hooper dropped Viacheslav Borshchev. Dropped him. Standing up with a punch. He hung out for the striking and blasted him. I think we can say officially Viacheslav Borshchev is not who we thought he was. He is tough. He is tough. This was a questionable, it's going to show up as submission. It's officially a submission loss. He didn't tap. They showed the replay 100 times. His hand did one like in a scramble, but he didn't tap. It was clear he didn't tap. Everybody knows he didn't tap. But he was getting ragdolled. Nothing was going to change. I'm pretty sure it was 2 10-8 rounds. Nothing was going to change. Tap, no tap, nothing was going to change. They just saved him from further embarrassment. Because Viacheslav did not defend the takedowns. Viacheslav was useless on the ground. And Viacheslav got outstruck by Chase Hooper. I think he's done. I think his last fight destroyed his chin. I think Nazim Sadikov destroyed Viacheslav's chin. Because it wasn't an insane punch, but it was obviously a good enough punch to drop him, but it shouldn't have. So I think Viacheslav's chin is done. He probably lost it in that last fight, and I don't know if he'll ever get it back. And without the chin, what do we have? A guy that can't defend takedowns, isn't a very good grappler. Like, he needs his chin to win these fights. So I think Viacheslav is probably on his way out. Obviously, he'll probably have another fight or two, but I do think his career is headed in that direction. But either way, Chase Hooper, good for that dude. Good for that. He wasn't afraid to strike. He hung out in the pocket, threw bombs, dropped this gentleman, and then easy work on the ground. Just easy work. He was just floating through positions, doing whatever he wanted to do on the ground. We knew he was going to be better on the ground, but I don't even think it was 50% effort. Either way, great fight for Chase Hooper. Not a great situation for Viacheslav Borshchev to be in right now. Then we had the biggest hype train in this division come to a screeching halt. And not even in like a fun, spectacular way. But that's a good thing to me. If Waldo Cortes-Acosta knocked out Robelis Despaigne in one of the early wild exchanges, that would be much, much worse. That would be a much worse situation. So what we had here was a 6'7" Taekwondo Olympian come in here, land some very big punches early. I thought Waldo was wobbled for a second there, maybe not. And then he got taken down. And after he got taken down, things didn't go well. They didn't go horribly, but they didn't go well. Let's put it this way. Robelis Despaigne had more success on the ground than Viacheslav Borshchev did. But Waldo Cortes isn't as good as Chase Hooper. So it might have been the opponent. But Robelis, I do think it's too early to call him a bust. I do think it's too early. This was only his 6th ever professional fight. Waldo Cortes was on his 12th, or this was his 13th professional fight. Waldo Cortes was going to be the more well-rounded guy, and he was always going to be the more experienced guy. We just didn't think it mattered because Robelis hit so freaking hard. I am fortunate that I wasn't all in on Robelis. You can't go all in on a guy that you've only seen 40 seconds worth of footage from. But we do know a little bit more now. If there's somebody that doesn't have decent takedowns or isn't the athletic caliber that Waldo Cortes is, Robelis Despaigne probably takes their head off. But if it is somebody that is pretty athletic, pretty fast, decent takedowns, you got to worry. Robelis did have early success. I thought he was winning those striking exchanges. I thought he won all, if not most, of the striking exchanges. And then obviously the takedowns were a problem. And then obviously a gentleman that large who has only fought under 1 minute in his last 4 fights didn't have the cardio that you need to go 15 full minutes, where Waldo Cortes-Acosta is a 15-minute guy. He's not a finish guy. So all of this is to say, I don't think Robelis Despaigne is a bust. I don't think he's just a broken prospect. I do think he's got to make some adjustments. I do think we have to figure out some nice, careful matchups. He is 35 years old, though, so they don't have 5 years to figure out a plan for this guy. So I do think what they need to do is give him a bunch of people that can't take him down and just let him do that. Just let him do that. Let him have that fun. Go out there, knock some people out, make a bunch of money, be exciting. Give him the same matchups you were giving Tai Tuivasa for a little while there. But great win for Waldo Cortes-Acosta. All of a sudden, this is a guy who's fearless, fighting somebody nobody else wanted to fight, switching up his game plans. We know he's a decent striker. Now we know he's a good wrestler. Waldo Cortes-Acosta is a guy that's sneakily just going to work some wins and get his way slowly up these heavyweight rankings. And this is a division that has some odd spots here, and he can make a name for himself pretty quickly. So great win for Waldo, and I wouldn't quite call Robelis a bust just yet. Then we had another controversial decision. I think the right person won this fight as well, but the scorecards were interesting. We had very close rounds. We had 3 very close rounds. The clearest round on this fight, and I had to rewatch this fight. I was in the car. We had to drive 3 hours out to East Texas, 3 hours back from East Texas, and I sat in the back seat while my wife drove me around like Miss Daisy with my iPhone clicked into the headrest and my laptop in front of me taking notes. My cell signal gave out. Right when this fight started, gave out. And I was getting updates from people, and then when the cell service came back, I watched the rest of the card. Then when the card was over, I went back and rewatched this fight because this is the only one I didn't get to see. I thought the 3 rounds were close. This was a back and forth fight. It was not obvious who was having success and who wasn't having success. It was not obvious at all. The 3rd round seemed pretty clear to me that Alex Caceres won that round, only because Sean Woodson was backing up. He was clearly tired, and just the optics of it. Nothing meaningful happened. Nobody was dropped. There weren't any dramatic 10-punch combination. Nothing like that happened. So I have a guy that's tired, that's backing up, significantly reduced volume from earlier in the fight, versus a guy that's seemingly fresh, moving forward, making stuff happen. And the judges still gave that round to Sean Woodson. So that was a peculiar fight card or scorecard. But Sean Woodson is the St. Louis sniper. So I guess there's a little bit of a hometown scorecard in there. But I do think the right guy won the fight. It felt like to me that Sean Woodson's range was getting a little tricky for Alex Caceres. It felt like for me that he had the more accurate strikes. He just seemed to land more. He seemed to land cleaner. He didn't look panicked, if you will. He looked controlled. He looked measured. He was landing what he wanted to when he wanted to. And Alex Caceres didn't look panicked either, but he's got that funky style. And that style, if you're not used to it and you don't know that's how he fights, it looks like he's a little discombobulated. It looks like he's out of sorts even when he isn't. So now you have judges reacting to the crowd who are obviously on Sean Woodson's side. You have judges knowing there's a hometown guy in there, and they're watching somebody a little herky-jerky, not as fluid, versus somebody with an ET body, but far more fluid, and they just lean that direction. I do think the right guy won, but this was another very, very close fight that if it went the other way, if they scored this for Alex Caceres, I don't imagine there were a lot of people that were going to scream and yell and make a scene. And speaking of making a scene, now you would think I'm about to railroad Mateusz Rebecki, right? Biggest favor on the card, got finished in the 3rd round. You would think that I'm about to make a scene and railroad him, but I'm not. I thought this was a good showing from both of them. Mateusz, look at this dude's face. Look at his face. It was blown up, smashed to smithereens. And he didn't quit. He continued to move forward. He continued to try to win this fight. Mateusz Rebecki won that 1st round. The takedowns were there. He had 4 takedowns. He dropped Diego Ferreira twice. They only gave him credit for 1. The other one was leg kicks in the 2nd round. He dropped this gentleman. And he continued to move forward. He continued to fight. Couldn't see towards the end of the 3rd round. That dude could not see out of his eyes. And that's ultimately what did him in. But this is not Mateusz Rebecki's a clown. What a joke. Fraud check. No, that's not what this is. He went out there, he fought his absolute ass off, and he just cocked into a guy that was nuts tough. Diego Ferreira is nuts tough. This dude has no quit in him whatsoever. This dude fought a fight. He fought like a man. Even when Mateusz Rebecki dropped him with the leg kicks, he was on his back, used his legs to just push him off. Pushed him off with his legs. The text I got from Josh the Web guy said, it looked like when you're playing with your child and you're holding them in the air, right? You have their hands, your feet are on their hips, you're holding them. That is what it looked like. He just launched him off and then stood up. Diego Ferreira did not stop. He continued to move forward. He was in a dogfight. He got taken down. He worked his way up. When he was sitting there, he was throwing big. He got dropped. He didn't care. This was a great fight. Diego Ferreira also got a performance of the night bonus. And again, I don't look at this and say Rebecki's a fraud. We've seen huge favorites lose before and we call him a fraud. And sometimes they do look fraudish. Not here. I don't think Rebecki looked fraudish. First of all, I think if he survived and if he made it to the scorecards, he might have won that decision. I think he banked the first 2 rounds. The second was close because that's when the eyes really started to shut on him. But I think he banked the first 2 rounds because he was moving forward. He did have a knockdown in each round. He was throwing punches. He did have takedowns. So I thought he won the first 2 rounds, came down to the third. If he was able to survive, I think he was going to win a decision. He wasn't, so he ended up losing. But no shade for Rebecki. That dude was on a 16-fight win streak, looked good in all of them, including this one, and ultimately just ran into a brick wall. I don't think he's a fraud. I don't think we call him a fraud, and I hope the general public thinks he's a fraud. So whatever his next matchup is, we're going to get a discount on him, because I do think Mateusz Rebecki is going to win his next fight and continue or start a new win streak. Diego Ferreira, I don't know what to do with this guy. He is 39 years old. He'll be 40 by the time he fights again. And he's not great anywhere, but he's just good everywhere and tough as hell. I don't know what we do with this guy, but good for him. This was a spectacular win for him. Tough as shit, moving forward, throwing big punches, landing that jab, scrambling on the ground. Diego Ferreira's a man, and good for him. This was an absolutely great win, and I'm happy he got all of that money. And I believe he asked for an advancement on his paycheck because he was behind on gym dues and things like that. So that extra $50,000 performance of the night bonus, he needed it. I hope he got some secret locker room cash as well. Good for Diego Ferreira. Excellent win. It'll take you longer to read the 5 words at the bottom of this screen than it will to have rewatched this entire fight. This fight was 12 seconds. This was a 12-second fight. Let me walk you through what happened. On the left-hand side, we have Alonzo Menafield running forward, windmilling punches, hoping that he's just going to catch out of nowhere Carlos Ulberg. And on the right-hand side, we have what happens when you just willy-nilly run forward winging punches from your hip against a world-class kickboxer. Okay? So on the left, I'm running. I'm going to get you. Boom. And that was the fight. That was the entire fight. What a horrible game plan. I understand maybe the concept of stay in his face, pressure him. He's the cleaner striker. Don't let him fight clean. Okay. Good advice. I get it. What I don't understand the contest is, hey, let's foot race. Run as fast as you can across that cage and just swing. And we should be good. Because all Carlos Ulberg had to do was stay composed with somebody with his high-level kickboxing experience. That shouldn't be an issue. Stay composed, step off, boom. Get him rocked a little bit, few more strikes, put him out, done. That's what we have here. We joked about the Alonzo Menafield fight IQ and the game planning from his coaches and all of that nonsense. The Pat Barry game plan. We talked about that. Pat Barry might be the worst coach in this sport. And he's probably a phenomenal positional coach, meaning he's a very good kickboxer. Pat Barry's an accomplished kickboxer in his own right. He's probably a good kickboxing coach, a good striking coach. He's got some real valuable insight, firsthand experience. He's succeeded in kickboxing and in MMA, frankly. But to be a head coach where he's in charge of your game plan, we've seen him put up some pretty horrific game plans more than one time. He's like the M. Night Shyamalan of game plans. Had some early success, a couple of good movies, started to believe in himself, buy into his own hype, and then we start getting trash twists, horrible endings, shoot a takedown when you shouldn't, run across the cage full speed. Pat Barry blew it This was a game plan thing. You can't blame this one on Alonso. This was a game plan thing. They sat down. They were in the hotel room all week. They thought they were geniuses with this. Oh, we're going to blitz him. We're going to blitz him. We're going to go as fast as we can across that octagon, and he is screwed. This was a game plan decision. It was a horrible decision. Carlos Ulberg stepped off. Crank, 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 crank. Done. Fight's over. 12 seconds. That sucks. Alonzo Menafield is a very, very talented guy. Hopefully this doesn't do things to his chin. Like, he's got to take some time off. He was put out. He's got to take some time off. Hopefully he doesn't return too quickly and then all of a sudden he doesn't get his chin back, because at light heavyweight, you can't be playing games chin or no chin. Once that chin's gone, it's gone. So hopefully, he got hit pretty hard. He's a youngish guy. Hopefully he recovers well and his chin doesn't have irreversible effects. Then we had a spectacular co-main event. And not spectacular in that it was a dogfight, it was wild back then. No, spectacular in that it was interesting. We had Joaquin Buckley turn into Joaquin Nurmagomedov. And the reason he did that is because he could not get inside the range of Nursulton. Nursulton's range was just way too wide. That range was absolutely incredible. He's 6'5" at 170 pounds, and Joaquin Buckley was doing all the movements, all the giant dramatic movements, huge steps forward, huge steps to the side, trying to get inside, and he couldn't. He could not get inside. So what did he do? He switched it up. He didn't panic. He didn't just keep rushing forward and getting lit up. He shot takedowns. He turned into a Nurmagomedov, and holy crap, is he fast. He's shooting Jordan Burroughs-esque takedowns. He is lowering his level, shooting doubles, and literally running right through you. No cage-controlled J.J. Aldrich nonsense. Shooting takedowns smack in the middle of that cage at full speed, running right through it. And he looked good. On the ground, there were a couple of moments where he got a little sloppy. Right? At one point, he had Nursulton full mounted, raining down punches. You thought that it might stop. You thought they might stop that fight the way that Joaquin Buckley was just landing these just hammer fist and raining down strikes. And then Nursulton just bumps his hips, moves a little bit, squirms his way out, and all of a sudden he's on top. Full sweep. Now he went from mount to on top. He swept from mount. So there's definitely some things that need to be cleaned up for Joaquin Buckley's grappling game, his control on top. But damn, man, making those adjustments on the fly, being like, this range is longer than anything I ever thought I'd have to deal with. I have to shoot some takedowns and then shoot takedowns and make those adjustments. Good for him. Nobody's going to build a career doing the exact same thing over and over and over. Joaquin Buckley showed us maturity. Joaquin Buckley has evolved almost more than any other fighter I can think of right now. Because a few years ago, he was headhunting. After he knocked out Impa Kasanganay with that jump spinning, with the greatest knockout of all time. After that, he was headhunting. After that, he was trying to knock everybody out. And now all of a sudden, he's taking his time. He's shooting takedowns. He's making adjustments in the middle of fights. And that is huge. That shows maturity. That shows this is somebody who's taking his career seriously. This is somebody who can make decisions in the moment. And I'm very curious to see who they give him next. This is another fight. Nursulton's not a fraud. Nursulton went out there, fought a decent fight. First of all, he should not be at 170 pounds. And while he didn't look gassed, he didn't look slow, he didn't look lethargic, he actually looked pretty good, it's still too much. It is too much weight to cut. Be 185, keep that power, be that guy. Stay at 185. Don't just cut because you can. Stay where you're at. I guarantee Nursulton will have more success at 185 pounds than he will at 170. Just move back up. You learn your lesson. Move back up. Stay at 185 and work from there. Just put on some weight if that's what your thing is. But I am curious to see who Joaquin Buckley gets next. This was a very quick turnaround for both of these guys. The fact that Nursulton Ruziboev fought 1 month ago at 185 pounds, looking good. No extra. I'm going to keep going back to J.J. Aldrich. J.J. Aldrich looks soft. She looked like she could lose another 10 pounds. Nursulton Ruziboev at 185 pounds 1 month ago had what looked like 5% body fat. And then he turned around a month later, cut an additional 15 pounds, and didn't gas, looked good, went a full decision in a back and forth fight with grappling. That's actually very impressive. Joaquin Buckley's win is insanely impressive. The decision-making skills are impressive. Nursulton's ability to make weight and then keep that energy throughout the fight is also impressive. Great fight on both of these guys, but Nursulton, get the hell out of 170. Go up to 185. Don't worry about cutting weight. Just worry about being better and beating up some of those guys. And Joaquin Buckley, I'm very excited to see what they have for him next. And then we have our main event of the evening. If this wasn't a Derrick Lewis fight, I don't know what is. First of all, speaking of weird game plans, this dude spent the first round, basically the first 2 rounds, holding Rodrigo Nascimento against the cage and working for takedowns. I don't know what that was about. I don't know why Derrick Lewis and his camp were like, you know what? You have more knockouts than anybody in history. Well, let's wrestle. Let's wrestle. Why don't you wrestle this guy? Yeah, let's wrestle him. I don't know what that was about. It was odd. It was bizarre to watch. And Rodrigo was having success. Rodrigo ended up on top. Rodrigo was doing well. But Derrick Lewis does what he does. He lands the punch. Big overhand right. And got it done. But what was impressive is in the second round, there were a few exchanges where Derrick Lewis landed huge on Rodrigo Nascimento. Huge. Punches and elbows, things that would have knocked out many other opponents. I actually thought Derrick was going to get frustrated. There was a few giant looping right hands that connected clean on Rodrigo Nascimento, and he didn't flinch. And I was like, oh man, Derrick Lewis just hit him with his best shot. He's going to have nothing. He's going to be frustrated. He's going to have nowhere to go. He's not going to know what to do here. The wrestling isn't working the way he thought it was. This is going to be a problem. But he's Derrick Lewis. He just stuck with it, kept bombing, and then eventually one of those bombs landed and did his job. I don't know what the hell the wrestling was all about. That made no sense to me. He basically just burned 2 rounds for no reason. Maybe that was a game plan. Hey, you can tire out Rodrigo. Just lean on him, be heavy, lean on him, tire him out, knock him out later. If that's the game plan, solid. But I don't know what the hell all that was about. Either way, great card. This fight was a little boring till it wasn't. The other heavyweight fight was a little boring the whole time. Right? Actually, the first 30 seconds, like, here we go. Yeah. Oh, we're wrestling. The rest of this fight was pretty good. The rest of this card was pretty good. This destroys any Apex card we're going to get. So I'm very glad the UFC was back in front of an audience. Guys, let me know your thoughts, what your favorite fight was. If you agreed with all of these decisions, I haven't seen as much outrage as I thought I would with some of these close fights, like the Sean Woodson one, with the Tabatha Ricci one, with the Trey Waters one. I haven't seen a lot of people hemming and hawing online. I've seen a lot of like, Rebecca better. That's basically all I've seen. There were a lot of massive landmines on this card. Jacob avoided all of them. He's up money. I lost $27. Either way, guys, thank you for the watch. If you do want to unlock premium membership, we have a premium offer. Yes, it's going to have our bets. And if you tailed Jacobs, you made some money. But it's also going to have tools, insight, information. We already have all the picks, the bets, and the tools up for UFC Vegas 92. That is next week's card. Lerone Murphy versus Edson Barbosa. And this is another card with a bunch of line movement. Unlock the line movement tracker. It's going to give you the opening odds, the current odds, of win probability, and the line movement for every fighter on every card. Unlock the detail, data, metrics, and analytics. You can use this information to find your own spots to jump in or jump out of prop bets. You're also going to get the DraftKings Optimizer preloaded with some of the best ownership projections on planet Earth. And you're going to get far more than just me and Jacob. You're going to get Artem breaking down the PFL, UFC, LFA, all the regional promotions, and our artificial intelligence, the Pick GPT. That is not only picking fights based off of historical data, but we're developing betting systems around those artificial intelligence picks. Every single thing I just mentioned and so much more, only $10 for an entire month at WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member. It's only $10 for an entire month. And if you sign up now, you will have access to UFC 302. Guys, thanks for the watch. Like, subscribe, do all the things. We appreciate you.